Hello. Today we'll be talking about the blood supply of brain and spinal cord. We'll be covering the following objectives regarding the introduction, blood supply of spinal cord, blood supply of the brain, what is the blood-brain barrier, clinical anatomy. Nervous system is richly supplied by blood. The arteries are end arteries once they reach the deeper level. Interruption of blood supply even for a short period can result in damage to nervous tissue. Lymphatic vessels are not present in nervous tissue. So now coming to the blood supply of spinal cord. There are three longitudinal channels which extend along the length of the spinal cord along with the arteria vasa carona. So longitudinal channels are one anterior spinal artery and two posterior spinal arteries. Apart from that, we have the arteria vasa carona. So anterior spinal artery lies in the anterior median fissure, while two posterior spinal arteries lie along the posterior lateral sulcus, along the dorsal nerve roots of the spinal nerves, the arteria vasa carona. So here the pia mater has an arterial plexus which sends branches into the substance of the cord. So the main source of blood supply to the spinal cord is the vertebral arteries and the radicular arteries. Now we'll take up one by one. That is the vertebral arteries. So this gives rise to both the anterior and posterior spinal arteries, but this supplies only up to the cervical segment. The radicular arteries supplies below the level of the cervical segment. These are branches which arise from the vertebral, ascending cervical, intercostal, lumbar and sacral arteries. The radicular arteries reach the cord along the roots of the spinal nerves. Many are small. They supply the nerve roots, but a few are large which join the spinal arteries. One of the anterior radicular artery is very large. Its position is variable. This supplies the lower two-thirds of the cord. It is called as the arteria radicularis magna or artery of Adam Quevics. Coming to the venous drainage, there are 6 longitudinal channels: anteromedian, posteromedian. There are 2 anterolateral and 2 posterolateral. So these channels are interconnected by plexus of veins to form the venous vasa carona. The venous vasa carona, these veins drain by radicular veins. They open into epidural or internal vertebral plexus. From there into the segmental veins. So with this we have completed the blood supply of spinal cord. Now coming to the blood supply of brain. The main arteries supplying the brain are the vertebral artery and the internal carotid artery. Now we'll take up one by one. The vertebral artery. This arises from the first part of subclavian artery. This artery is divided into 4 parts. The first part from the point of origin till it reaches the foramen transverse area of the 6th cervical vertebra. The second part ascends to all the foramen transverse area of the upper 6 cervical vertebra. The third part lies on the posterior arch of the atlas vertebra, and then it pierces the posterior atlanto-occipital membrane. So that is the third part. Once it pierces the posterior atlanto-occipital membrane and enters to the foramen magnum, it unites with the opposite artery to form the basilar artery. This is called as the fourth part of the vertebral artery. Now coming to the branches of vertebral artery. So this gives rise to the anterior spinal artery, two posterior spinal arteries, posterior inferior cerebellar artery, medullary branch and meningeal branches. Branches of the basilar artery. So this gives rise to pontine arteries, anterior inferior cerebellar artery, labyrinthine artery, superior cerebellar artery and posterior cerebral artery. The posterior cerebral artery. So this gives rise to posteromedial central branches. It pierces the posterior perforated substance and supplies the midbrain and caudal part of diencephalon. So another branch is the posterior choroidal artery, supplies the choroid plexus of the lateral ventricle. And the third branch is the cortical branches, which gives rise to the temple, parieto-occipital and the occipital cortex. Coming to the clinical anatomy, the posterior cerebral artery. So this gives rise to, so if it leads to thrombosis, there is homonymous hemianopia on the opposite side. The superior cerebellar artery thrombosis, so leads to cerebellum. So if it affects the cerebellum, there is disturbed gait and limb ataxia. So in case of brainstem, ipsilateral ulnar syndrome and contralateral sensory loss, that is pain and temperature, including the face. Anterior inferior cerebellar artery damage. So in case here, if it affects the cerebellum, ipsilateral limb ataxia, and if it affects the brainstem, ipsilateral ulnar syndrome and sensory loss, especially pain and temperature of face, facial weakness and paralysis, contralateral sensory loss, that is pain and temperature of limbs and trunk. Posterior inferior cerebellar artery damage. So if it affects the cerebellum, there will be dysarthria, ipsilateral limb ataxia, vertigo and nystagmus. And if it affects the brainstem, ipsilateral ulnar syndrome, sensory loss, especially pain and temperature of face, pharyngeal and laryngeal paralysis, contralateral sensory loss, especially pain and temperature of limbs and trunk. Internal carotid artery. This is a second artery. Each artery enters the cranial cavity after traversing the carotid canal, and it emerges into the middle cranial fossa to the superior aspect of foramen lacerum. Here it courses through the cavernous sinus. It pierces the roof of the sinus and ends lateral to the optic chiasma. It divides into middle anterior cerebellar arteries. So coming to the branches of internal carotid artery, ophthalmic artery, posterior communicating artery, anterior choroidal artery, anterior cerebral artery, middle cerebral artery. Next, coming to the circle of Willis or circulus arteriosus. So this is a hexagonal arterial circle at the base of the brain in the interpeduncular fossa. So how it is formed? so mainly contributed by anterior cerebral arteries and terminal branches of internal carotid artery, the posterior cerebral branch of basilar artery. So formation anteriorly, the anterior communicating artery, so joins by anterior cerebral artery. Then anterolaterally, anterior cerebral arteries. Laterally, internal carotid artery. Posterolaterally, posterior communicating artery. And posteriorly, the posterior cerebral arteries. All these arteries are joined together to form the circle of Willis. So main function is to equalize the flow of blood to different parts of the brain. It provides collateral circulation in events of obstruction. So coming to the branches of this important circle, so you have the cortical branches, central branches and choroidal branches. So now we'll take up one by one. There's the cortical branches, arises from all three cerebral arteries. Anterior, middle and posterior cerebral arteries. They supply the cerebral cortex. There is a superolateral surface, medial surface and inferior surface. The superolateral surface mainly supplied by the middle cerebral artery. So middle cerebral artery is the main artery. This supplies whole of the superolateral surface except a small strip about 2 centimeters wide along the superomedial border which extends from the frontal pole up to the parieto-occipital sulcus. So this region is supplied by the anterior cerebral artery. Similarly, the occipital lobe is supplied by the posterior cerebral arteries, and the inferior temporal gyrus is supplied by the posterior cerebral arteries. But this excludes the temporal pole. So the temporal pole is supplied by the middle cerebral artery. Next, coming to the medial surface. Most of the medial surface is supplied by the anterior cerebral artery, except a small area of that is the occipital lobe and inferior temporal gyrus. Excluding the temporal pole, this is supplied by the posterior temporal artery, while the temporal pole, which I already told you, is supplied by the middle cerebral artery. Next, coming to the inferior surface. So anterior cerebral artery supplies the medial 1/3 of the orbital surface. The middle cerebral artery supplies the lateral 2/3 of the orbital surface, including the temporal pole. And posterior cerebral artery supplies the rest of the tentorial surface. So with this we have completed the surfaces. Next, coming to the central branches. So this gives rise to 6 groups: anteromedial, anterolateral, posteromedial and posterolateral. So this has been depicted in the figure as 1, 2, 3, 4. Now we'll take up one by one. So anteromedial, which is number 1. So anterior cerebral and anterior communicating artery, they enter the anterior perforated substance. While the anterolateral, which is number 2, there are two groups, one each from the middle cerebral artery. The medial group and lateral group. The medial group supplies the caudate nucleus and internal capsule, while the lateral group is larger, called as Charcot's artery. It supplies the internal capsule. So this is an important artery, also called as artery of cerebral hemorrhage. Then we have the posteromedial group, which is depicted as number 3, which arises from the posterior communicating and posterior cerebral artery. So this supplies the hypothalamus, subthalamus, thalamus and midbrain. And number 4, that's the posterior lateral. This also has two groups, each from the posterior cerebral arteries. Mainly they supply the thalamus. So with this we have completed the central branches. Next we are going on to the choroidal branches. We have anterior choroidal, which arises from the internal carotid artery. So it forms the choroid plexus of the inferior horn of lateral ventricle. Posterior choroidal artery arises from the posterior cerebral artery. It forms the choroid plexus of the lateral and the third ventricle. And last but not the least is the posterior inferior cerebellar artery. So it forms choroid plexus of the fourth ventricle. Next, we have the branches supplying the cerebellum. So the cerebellum is mainly supplied by the superior cerebellar artery, anterior inferior cerebellar artery, and posterior inferior cerebellar artery. The brain stem. So the midbrain is supplied by the posterior cerebral artery. Pons is supplied by the pontine branches of basilar artery. And medulla, you have two branches, the medullary branch of vertebral artery and the branch from posterior inferior cerebellar artery supplying the medulla. Next we have the blood-brain barrier. This is formed by structures between the blood vessels as well as the nerve cells of the brain. So the barrier is formed by the capillary endothelium and its basement membrane and processes of astrocytes. So the areas devoid of blood-brain barrier are the penile body, hypophysis cerebri, choroid plexus, and area postrema of the fourth ventricle. So main functions of the blood-brain barrier are, so entry of glucose, allows entry of gases, water, electrolytes, amino acids, lipid-soluble substances. It restricts entry of macromolecules, blocks entry of toxins which are bound to plasma albumin, blocks drugs, penicillin and noradrenaline, etc. But atropine, chloramphenicol, etc. may cross this barrier. Coming to the clinical anatomy. So lateral striate artery, branch of middle cerebral artery. So if it leads to thrombosis, there will be motor or sensory loss of opposite side, but lower limbs will be spared. Lenticulostriate branch, which is a branch of middle cerebral artery, also called as Charcot's artery of cerebral hemorrhage. So if it leads to thrombosis, there will be hemiplegia, especially upper motor neuron type of paralysis. So one half of the body plus face, both will be paralyzed. Then Huebner's recurrent branch, is a branch of anterior cerebral artery. So if there is thrombosis, leads to contralateral upper monoplegia. Similarly, when there is distal occlusion of the anterior cerebral artery, there will be weakness and cortical sensory loss, contralateral lower limbs and incontinence. Similarly, thrombosis of anterior cerebral artery, the terminal branch, leads to contralateral and lower limb monoplegia. Coming to the veins of the brain, so these veins are devoid of muscles, there is no valves, and usually to maintain patency, some of these open into the cranial venous sinuses against the direction of the flow of blood in the sinuses. So here we can see in the superior cerebral veins draining into the superior sagittal sinus. So we have the external cerebral veins, which comprises of superior cerebral veins, superficial middle cerebral vein, deep middle cerebral vein, inferior cerebral veins, and anterior cerebral veins. So these are all the external cerebral veins. Next we have the internal cerebral veins. So union of thalamostriate vein with the choroidal vein. So this occurs at the apex of the telocardia of the third ventricle. Both the internal cerebral veins, that is right and left, they run parallelly in the telocardia and both unite to form the great cerebral vein. So this occurs below the splenium of corpus callosum. Then the terminal veins, that is the great cerebral vein of Galen, formed by union of two internal cerebral veins. So this terminates in the straight sinus. Then basal vein, formed at the anterior perforated substance by union of deep middle cerebral vein, anterior cerebral vein and striate vein. It terminates by joining the great cerebral vein. So coming to the assignment. So blood supply of spinal cord and blood supply of brain. What is a blood-brain barrier? Next, coming to a clinico-anatomical problem. A 60-year-old male with history of hypertension. He was not taking medication regularly. One night he felt a severe headache and was soon paralyzed on the right half of the body. Where is the lesion? Explain the type of paralysis, symptoms and signs elicited.